Hi, it's Randee Bergen from Busy Bee Kindergarten. I was asked to explain how I do sight words in my classroom, and I'm definitely going to follow through on that for the person who asked me to do this for my Busy Bee Kindergarten newsletter. And before I explain what I'm currently doing in my classroom and what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years, I do want to say that I'm not going to be doing it that way anymore. With all I've learned recently about the science of reading, and especially how we need to be thinking about sight words and how we approach them with kids, I am going to be changing things around. I wouldn't say that what I've been doing is wrong or bad. We always need to be careful about that as teachers because we can beat ourselves up for having done things a certain way in the past. We always try our best with what we currently know. As I'm finding out, it's not our fault that no one told us about the science of reading that's really been around since the 80s. So we've been doing our best, and for the most part, it's been working. The way I've been doing sight words for 5 or 6 years has been really effective. Kids have learned a lot of sight words. So I just think I can do a better job, and we all can, based on what we now know about how kids learn words. So first of all, we need to stop thinking of them as sight words. Kids do not learn words by sight. Nobody reads by sight. We are all quickly processing all of the letters and spelling patterns in words with everything that we read. So we want to teach kids to attack sight words. Here I am still calling them sight words. Attack words in this manner by saying the sounds, not by looking at words as a whole unit. So what I'm going to try to train myself to do, and what I recommend, is that we don't call them sight words. We start calling them high frequency words. They're just words that appear a lot. So let's learn the phonics skills that we need to decode these words as we encounter them. So there are 3 types of sight words. See, I'm still doing it. There are 3 types of high frequency words, 3 categories that we always need to be thinking about. The first category is regular words. Regular words are words that can be decoded based on common decoding skills and patterns, spelling patterns. So research has shown that that's the majority of high frequency words. So there we go. There's a whole bunch of words wiped out that we don't need to teach kids to memorize. And then there are the irregular words, words that are just spelled kind of weird and don't follow spelling patterns. So these are words like said and you, y-o-u, and again. These words are the ones that we're not going to teach kids to learn them by sight, but we're going to analyze the words with kids and let them discover which part of the words are working for them and which part do need to kind of be memorized. In between these 2 categories is this fluctuating group of words called temporarily irregular words. They do follow spelling patterns. To an adult, they look like normal words, maybe like the word light, L-I-G-H-T, or even now with the O-W, or take with a silent E. So we call them temporarily irregular because when kids are first learning how to decode words, like vowel consonant words or consonant vowel consonant words, the skills they need to read words like take and now, they might not know those yet. So they're irregular to them at that moment in time. But they become regular words. They will go into that huge, big pile of words that really can be decoded once you've learned those phonics skills. Okay? So, what this means for me, and what I need to be working on and changing from the way I currently do sight words, is that I need to stop thinking of these words as sight words. Like I said, sight words that need to be memorized. We know now from research that we always see all of the letters and we quickly process all of those letters while we're reading. We don't learn words by looking at the whole. Our brain doesn't really work that way. We know that now. So we need to stop implying to students and to parents and to everyone that that is how you learn a lot of sight words, high frequency words. So I'm going to make sure, I'm going to train myself to start calling them high frequency words, okay? Also, I am going to go through this process of reordering the words that students need to learn. So, of course, I've always taught them in order of frequency. So my first sight word list had the, I, to, he, she, of, said, you know, those top 20 words. And when we think about it now, it's like, why? Why are we giving kids this painful process of learning words like said in their top list of sight words? Why do they need to know she right away when they don't know that SH yet? So I'm so excited to do this. I know some people think I'm a little bit weird, but I'm going to go through all of my 220 words and look at other people who have already done this and reorder these words. So first of all, after I've taught all of my letter sounds, I'm going to have kids working on vowel consonant words. So this will be it, in, am, at, those type of words. And I'm already like so excited because I know that will make kids so much more successful in attacking words and feeling confident. That whole guessing thing is going to go away. That whole relying on what did the teacher say was the clue for this word. Then of course we'll move into consonant vowel consonant words. Next will be lists or groups of words that have CVCC, like went, or CCVC. I know flat isn't a high frequency word, but that spelling pattern. Then we could have words with a silent E, words that have digraphs, the TH, CH, SH, WH, and then words with the different diphthongs. So to move kids through that progression of learning words just makes so much more sense now that we know how kids learn words, okay? We also need to be super cognizant of that fluctuating state of those temporarily irregular words, okay? So remember, we've got the regular words, all those words that can be decoded, and then we've got these permanently irregular words, the ones that are never really going to make sense phonetically. And in the middle are all these other words that are temporarily irregular. That means maybe the kids haven't learned the phonics rules. They need to decode those words, but once they do and they become proficient in using those phonics rules, then those words will no longer be irregular to them. They'll go into their regular pile. So this group of words is always going to be changing based not only on what we've taught in phonics, but what kids actually learned. Because as we all know, just because we teach it doesn't mean kids have learned it or internalized it yet. So we're going to need to be really aware of where each student is with each phonics skill that we've introduced. Practicing words can, of course, make that phonics skill more mastered for them. So I'm not recommending you don't practice it if they didn't actually learn it, but that's a way for them to learn it. We definitely, I think, we just have to still continue to let kids learn at their own pace and to differentiate for them. So some kids will be learning this group of words, other kids this group, some kids still down on vowel consonants, other kids we've got to let them take off and go with it and teach them new spelling patterns, because we don't want them to get bored reading things that they already know how to do. Also, as far as dealing with those words that are always irregular, words like said, I'm going to do more of the phoneme grapheme mapping to help students make sense of these words. So if I introduce the word said and we talk about it, we're going to do like we always do, listen to the sounds in this word, said, and then we'll map it. So we'll spell it out that way, S-E-D, because I teach my kids to write down the sounds you hear. And we always put a star under the letters that are behaving, we call it. So we'll put a star under S, we'll put a star under the D, and then we'll really start to look at that middle sound. I'll just say right away, because they understand this in my classroom, that AI is not behaving, it's making an E sound. By the way, my kids do this all the time when we analyze their names in the name game, which will be another thing that I post on my newsletter soon, so you can kind of see how that works. But anyway, when we do this mapping, kids will see that, oh, the S is doing what it's supposed to do, the D is doing what it's supposed to do. All I need to worry about and memorize, because this part really is memorizing, is that AI is not behaving and it's making a short E sound. And this will help them read it and spell it as well. I really look forward to making these changes in my teaching. I'm constantly, for my last 30 years, I've been learning new things, trying new things with kids. I've been lucky that I'm not tied to a program really at any point in my career that has me doing things that I don't believe in. And it gives me the freedom to kind of research on my own with kids. And I think that's why I've gotten some good results. But now I feel like, oh, I all of a sudden know so much more. And I'm really looking forward to the difference it's going to make. Even though things have been going well, of course, we're always striving to do better. So I hope that you are thinking about how you're going to change your practice, and I'm going to be documenting all of this as I go along, so you're more than welcome to come along and learn with me, and I hope to learn from you as well. Thank you, and here is how I currently do my sight word program in my classroom. And this video is going to be about the sight word program that I do in my classroom. It's not actually a program, it's just kind of my own thing that I do. I've been doing it fairly consistently for the last 6 years, and it works. So I actually had a special request to share this, and so I'm making this video for at least one person. So the program, in quotes, is called Ball Sight Words, and I need to credit Marcia from A Differentiated Kindergarten, which you can find online and on Pinterest, for this idea. I heard about her sight word program and the fact that she lets kids learn up to 220 sight words in kindergarten, and that sounded like something that I wanted to do. I think that there are a lot of kids who learn to read in kindergarten. They want to be challenged, they need more than we typically give them, and so this is an opportunity for them to learn at their own pace and forge ahead if they would like to do that. So I start the program in mid-October. This is after we've been working with words for a couple of months, and kids have a fairly good sense of what a word is. They also know quite a few letter sounds at this point and are just starting to sound out words. We start practicing sounding out CVC words in mid to late October. The reason we start early, because even I think that's kind of early, is that we need to have kids ready to do that by mid-year DIBELS testing. So we do start in October, and since they know quite a few letters and sounds, and we're working on that anyway, and they have a good sense of what a word is, it is a great time to start formal sight word learning. So the Ball Sight Word program is based on the first 220 Dolce words. Now here's something that I recently learned. because a lot of people will ask, do you use the Dolce words? Do you use the Fry list? Where do you get your sight words? And I don't know why, I've always liked the Dolce list better. And I never really knew what the difference was. I mean, high frequency words are high frequency words, right? So what I recently found out is that the Dolce words are the most frequent words that you will see in typical texts for kindergarten through second grade reading level. And the Fry words are the high frequency words for all reading, even upper elementary and into adult reading. So to me, it makes sense to use the Dolce words for kindergartners. But of course, probably either list would work just fine. So the 220 Dolce words are divided into 11 lists, and they have 20 words per list. Now, it's called the ball sight words because it has a ball or a sports theme to it. So the first list is the baseball words, then the soccer words, then the basketball words, and they progress through these 11 lists. So everyone starts with the baseball words. So I send the list home, and I have a letter that I've written out to parents that explains what this is all about, why it's important for kids to learn sight words, and that I'm going to need their help. I think it's great to get parents involved. It's hard at the beginning, I'm not going to lie. We all know how painful it is to teach kids how to read sight words. It's painful for us, the teachers. So you can imagine how painful it is for parents who don't know all the tricks and how to say the letter sounds and how we do it at school. So I just state that in the letter. It's going to be painful on this first list, but please stick with it, because it does get easier with each list. As kids learn how to learn words, it gets easier. So this is how it works. I send the list home. I tell parents they need to be working on these. It explains that they have some options when their child has learned the list. They can either come into school and say, hey, I know my baseball words, I'm ready for a test. Or parents can send in a video to me. We have a Facebook group for our class, and so they can find me on Facebook Messenger, and they can send a video of their child reading these words at home. I really kind of push parents to do that because it's less time consuming for me. It's hard to find time during the school day to test kids. I mean, sometimes I do it on lunch recess. Sometimes I try to squeeze them in during workshop, at my reading table, but that's taking away from other important things. So I really encourage parents to send in the videos. And if they know most of the words, if they get stuck on a couple, it's okay. The point of this is for kids to start to see themselves as readers, for kids to understand that they're in charge of their learning, that they can take ownership, that they can learn these words. So if they know most of them, like 18 out of 20, I'll pass them on to the next list. Now, the fun part is, as you can tell from the display that I'm going to show, that when they get a ball on their head, or when they learn a list, they get a ball on their head on our display in the classroom. And so they're so thrilled when they get that baseball on their head. And then to see those balls pile up as time goes on is really meaningful to them. Now on the display, I have all of my students' faces covered up, but you can imagine how fun it is when the kids can see their faces. The nice thing about kindergartners is that they don't really compare themselves to others yet. So it's okay to display this type of data in the classroom, in my opinion. They just tend to be like, whoa, I finally got my baseball. Not, oh no, she has 10 balls and I only have 2. They just don't seem to care that much how their peers are doing. So, as you might imagine, parents don't take this very seriously. A lot of them think, oh, well, I'm sure this is just a little whim for the week. This too shall pass. I'm just going to ignore it because this looks like a really hard thing to do with my child. So, on the other hand, a lot of parents are just so gung-ho. I mean, there's parents out there who are, they're just so happy to have something to work on with their kids, something specific. They want to be involved. And so some parents will just totally take off with this and support their kids. And on the other spectrum, the other end of the spectrum, you'll have, like we do, 6 or 7 kids each year who no one will work with them. And so my aide and I, we kind of take over. We not only work with the kids more, and they'll probably end up in intervention groups, but we also kind of, try to fill in as their parent when we can and say, hey, you want to work on your words a little extra. So anyway, this is a self-paced program, and that's the beauty of it. Some kids aren't even ready for sight words in October. So you're talking about it, they're seeing them in the classroom. You don't have to spend a lot of time on sight words whole group when you do this program. One thing I love about it. But of course, you're still talking about some sight words. And so even if some kids aren't ready to really dive into this and be sounding out words, they're still getting the beginning stuff that you need for sight words. And I have some kids now in January who are just starting to learn the first list, the baseball words. And that's fine. That's the beauty of it. So the question is, what do you do with those kids who learn all 11 lists by November? Because there's always a few. So it's kind of funny. The first year, I thought, well, this sight word program will last, into springtime, and then I'll figure out what I'm doing next. Well, of course, I had a couple students who were done learning these words by November, before Thanksgiving. And so, by then they're just so gung-ho. They're so into challenging themselves and wanting to take ownership for their learning, because we talk about that in the classroom, that they're like, what do I do next? They're just antsy, like, give me something to do, give me something to learn, give me something to be responsible for. So the first year, when I hadn't thought it through, I just said, okay, I gave them the first list again, and I said, okay, just take this home and learn to spell these. Of course, after they left, I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I just gave a kindergartner 20 words to learn how to spell. How mean? What am I doing? Like, you barely do that to a second grader. And well, lo and behold, they were back the next day and they knew how to spell them all, which, if you think about it, makes sense. What's on that first list? The, I, in, she, he. Of course they can spell those if they've learned to read 220 words. So, about these spelling tests, because if you do this like we do, you'll have, maybe 8 or 10 kids who really get into the spelling tests. So I don't test kids over all 20 words each list. They don't need to pass 20 words to pass the list. I only give them 10. And I choose those 10 words very carefully. I'm not going to choose words that require studying or memorization, because that really is inappropriate, in my opinion, for kindergarten. I only choose words that are phonetic. So I would test them on in and big and red and 6, a lot of those CVC type words. And then, of course, maybe words with a silent E, because by the time they're testing over this, it could be February or March. They could be very well-versed in silent E and how to read that and how to spell with it. By February, I've usually taught some of the things like OW and OY, AY, so I would put those on the spelling list. So it's not too hard, it's mostly doable. In fact, most of the kids don't really have to study for that, they just need to be thinking, which of course is what I'm trying to get them to do. Think about the phonics that I have taught you. Okay, so they've gone through 11 lists and learned to read them all. Then they'll go through 11 lists and learn to spell them all. Not all kids, of course, but some. If they want more, I take them back to the baseball words, the first list again, and they can do speed reading. Speed reading is reading these words in phrases very quickly. So they have to read a set of phrases in 1 minute. This is how I know they've truly mastered these words and that they are sight words. They know them by sight. If they go all the way through that, and there's some kids that do, then I take them back again for another round of writing with these words. I call it perfect sentences. They need to just write 3 perfect sentences for me. These would be short sentences that I dictate to them that have a lot of sight words, that start with a capital, have spaces between words, have their best handwriting, and have punctuation at the end. You know who those kids are. There's going to be kids who would love to study for that. So this gives them the opportunity to do that. So what I like about ball sight words is it just becomes a huge part of our classroom culture. And the kids really get into it. They love the sight word wall. They'll often say, hey, can we count our balls and see how many lists we've learned? One thing I forgot to mention, in October, after I send this information home to parents, not much happens because you know how it is. Parents are overwhelmed. They don't know if this is really like, how big a deal is this? Do we really need to do this? So what I do is I tell the parents that we're setting a goal of learning 100 lists by winter break. So we have 2 months to learn 100 lists. My classes are always 25 kids or higher, always guaranteed. So, that's an average of 4 lists per child. Now, there's going to be a lot of kids who don't learn any lists by December because they're just not ready or no one's helping them. But anyway, parents usually will, they're worried about that goal. And they'll really try to help out if they can, if they have the type of kid who's ready to learn lists. So that's one way to get the momentum going. And I also remind parents that even though that first list of words is really painful to teach, it's hard to teach, that the next list gets easier and easier and easier. And they see that happening. And then their kids can just start whizzing through these lists. The other thing that I love is that kids will start to take ownership for just doing this on their own. Usually by the 4th or 5th list, I'll have kids just get their lists out, study on their own, and come to me and say they want a test. They never even took the list home to the parents. The parents didn't even know they passed the previous test. Of course, this is ideal. This is what we're shooting for. 5-year-olds who take ownership for getting this work done, that's amazing. So anyway, I've been really happy with this sight word program, and parents, they really like it too. I've had a lot of parents who move on to 1st grade, and the 1st grade teachers have let me know that at conferences, some of the parents will say, well, are there any sight words or anything we should be working on? Because they enjoyed that process with their child.